Hello, today I'm going to talk about my book banning assignment s'mores activity. With that in mind, I made a s'mores that, as if I was a librarian and I had a monthly newsletter, and this month, April 2024, was all about censorship. I started off with a lovely little quote at the bottom that said, if they ban books, they might as well lock us away from the world. And I think that really embodies what the message is about banning books here. So I began with intellectual freedom. Intellectual freedom is a never-ending argument. Looking at all the data, ALA is firmly against the restriction and removal of books. It for many different reasons. One of the reasons is freedom of expression. Individuals, patrons have the right to not only access the information, but to interact with it, grapple with it. And by removing the free flow of resources, we then begin to remove the ability to express those thoughts, because thoughts form whenever they begin to hit and intermix with other thoughts. So it's really important that we allow access to all resources, which leads to freedom of expression leads to personal autonomy. Personal autonomy is all about individuals being able to determine if a resource is good enough for them, not good enough for them, aligns with their beliefs, does not align with their beliefs. Basically, if it is the resource for them. From there, they become better consumers of media and consumers of literature. With that in mind, that leads them to really understanding humanity as a whole. It leads to their ability and their desire and willingness to explore greater types of genres, deeper levels of that genre, just unexpected genres across the board. So intellectual freedom is crucially important because it keeps society moving. You want to remove an individual's ability to think and govern themselves, remove books. So there were four sources, sites that I really looked into. One was Tidal Wave. I really focused on the fact that it said just building the library community and supporting the library community. Pardon me. So with that, Tidal Wave does a great job for giving educators and librarians ability to run reports. On these reports, they can collect data that shows how many books are in the collection, the genres, the specificities in each of the genres, such as fiction versus nonfiction. It can show us the gaps in the missing sections, which is great. And then from that, librarians can use that to figure out what books they need to add. And as they're going through and looking through books, they can determine if a book is right for them based on the age ratings of their patrons, their reviews, just the general background information given. So Tidal Wave is a great resource to make sure that librarians are locating them, they're evaluating resources, and then they're ethically using those resources. The next one is Common Sense Media. As a middle school teacher, I recommend Common Sense Media to my parents because there are so many amazing books on the shelves, but seldom are my students picking up, like, let's say, Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants. They want to pick up, like, Icebreakers, which is not the book that most students think it is. Even though it's pretty and it's cartoonish, it's just not the book. So I really encourage Common Sense Media because I want to give my students, and as a librarian, I want to give my patrons and students all the books that they want, but their families have a right to determine if a book is right for them. So Common Sense Media is really great because it shows a wide variety of media, such as books, TV shows, movies, websites, and it then will give content warnings. It will give the educational value. It will give general information from adults and students. It will give you content, trigger warnings, all of it, across the board, fabulous. And I've used Common Sense Media, and one thing I really love about it is it gives you a quick blip of it that's pretty in-depth, even if you haven't seen it before. So Common Sense Media is a great way to evaluate resources and make sure that they are what your family needs. Next, we have Teachers for Change. This site really focuses on how difficult it is for families to find the right books for their student. It does a great job of giving clear criteria that can support families in finding the right book while also supporting removing biases. So it talks about how it gives examples of harmful stereotypes, subtly written books such as like Blue Collar Workers, Mixed Families. It talks about different styles and like different lifestyles. It talks about loaded words or phrases that we may have not considered previously. Secondly, the website also really encourages you to look at the date, because some books that may have been published in the early like 1920s or 1940s are going to have very different viewpoints and cultures of that time period, and those could be really great books to be used for instructional purposes on how times have changed or what was acceptable then and not acceptable now, or even like 20 years ago. They do a really great job of talking about how stereotypes and stigmas may have been perpetuated even though they are generally removed by society, but how literature can pass it on, and so just how to be aware of it. And then lastly, the ALA, I obviously had to bring this one. The ALA did a great job of bringing resources together that really just help the people of the world make sure that they're avoiding clickbait and understanding those fake news sources. Two sections that I really liked is there's the ALA's toolkits and programming. It really worked towards explaining what clickbait was, giving examples, lots of different websites on how to avoid it. And then there was the fact-checking sites. These sites all focused on, if you're not sure if information is correct, go to these sites. It also gives you lots of sites. It had several links that led you to lists that were sites that should not be trusted. So that was pretty cool, I think. And especially since so much of our media and information we're consuming and students are consuming, this is a great site. This is a site that I would have loved to have the first time I learned that about the Onion and thinking the Onion was real. And then a friend told me it wasn't. So this would have been a great site as a resource for me. There's two more sections of this SMORE that I really focus on. I focused on the minor's right to read. And with that, I focused on three criteria. The first one is the ALA stands that nobody has the right of reading to be taken away, not age specific. So with that, it goes on to the fact that while a library needs to give the resources, each family needs to determine if the resources are right for them. It's our job to be supportive of all the different needs and all the different beliefs of our clients, but each family needs to determine if the book's right for them. So while as a librarian I may offer a resource, my job is not to override what a parent or guardian says is fit, which really brings us to the quote at the end, which I will bring about back in a second. And then lastly, I focused on the legal ethics and codes of the profession. The ALA talks about how it's our job to provide a diversity of viewpoints without the constraint of labeling or prejudicing judging film, video, or other audiovisual materials on the basis of moral, religious, or political beliefs of the producer or filmmaker, or on the bias of controversial content. We, as readers, have the right to make our own decisions, and readers who are not us have a right to make their own decisions. They just are not allowed to overlap. It is not my job as a librarian to determine what's right for the masses. It's their job. My job is simply to give them the materials to go from there, then help them evaluate them if they see that being a need they need. Secondly, the ALA says that it is a huge encroachment upon a citizen's freedom to view topics of their choosing if we were to limit or judge what books are right or wrong. It is our job to, like I said it before, just give it to them and let them determine. The moment we start determining what is right or wrong is when we start going towards Fahrenheit 451. It flashes in my head where reading is bad and they're burning books. You want to get away. You want to get rid of democracy. You want to get rid of people having power, get rid of literature. And the ALA really stands behind that. And then just a final thought to leave you with. Censorship, like charity, should begin at home. But unlike charity, it should end there. That quote really just stuck with me about how the ALA thinks that it's our job to give them books, but it's a parent's job and a guardian's and a family's job to determine what books is right for them. As a whole, I learned a lot about how to use SMORE from this activity. I love the topic of banned books, so this part of the assignment was kind of fun for me just learning more about banned books.